It is far from a finished product, but for the first time in the Jalen Brunson era, the Knicks are actually trying to run offense. How did it look in game one? We're going to tell you.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed reporter that's been covering the New York Knicks for nearly a decade, and I'm the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. Be sure to check me out there. Joining me for the second time ever as co-host, it is Kris Pursiainen, an NBA reporter for Clutch Points, who, of course, is also on the Knicks beat. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks. Give you the most detailed insight on your favorite team at least 5 days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team. On today's show, Kris, Knicks basketball, it is finally back after a few painful months off. We are back in action. We are back in the win column, a 99-84 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers in Abu Dhabi. Clyde was on the mic on MSG Network. It was a joy. On today's show, we're going to talk about what to make of the New York Knicks starting Pacome Dadiet, the promise and early struggles of Mike Brown's new offense, an up-and-down start for Mikal Bridges, a hot one for Deuce McBride, highlights across the board. It's all coming up right now on Locked On Knicks. But we take our eyes first, Kris, to the starting lineup. You had reporting all the way back a month ago that the Knicks would likely be shopping Pacome Dadiet. We heard similar stuff from Steph Bondy, some other reporters. I know James Edwards of The Athletic had something similar the other day. Fascinating, I think, that with OG Anunoby apparently out with a left hand sprain, if I heard that correctly, it is Pacome Dadiet who gets the start. I know on the Knicks Film School pod, James Edwards, he framed that as a possibility given Mike Brown's, in the past, his preference has been to not disrupt a coherent bench unit and to just bring up someone from the third line to start, but they put him in over someone like Landry Shamet. You could have gone small and started Malcolm Brogdon, but they made a very definitive decision to give Pacome Dadiet a chance. I'll leave the floor to you, on top of course, starting Mitchell Robinson over Josh Hart, which is also obviously notable. What'd you make of the starting lineup?
Yeah, you had this real jerk on your show a little bit ago who said that they could understand, they could see it coming if Mitchell Robinson was Mike Brown's fifth starter. Nerdy guy with an attitude, but that's what you got today. Pacome Dadiet, last season, game one, sneaks into the rotation against the Celtics. This season, game one of the preseason, sneaks into the starting lineup. So we now know who the Knicks coach in 2027 is going to be. Congratulations, Coach Dadiet, on your eventual promotion. And it's going to be great to see you own the team in 2029 when you take over MSG and all of its properties and spherical assets. But no, I mean, hey, man, Pacome, when they drafted him, was raw. But I remember talking with Dexter Henry. He was kind enough to bring me in studio to talk about some Knicks draft prospects. And Pacome is the one that I brought up that you could tell, caught his ear. The word he used was smooth. He just kept saying, I've watched that kid. He's 18, but he's smooth. He's polished. Yeah, he's raw with regard to executing NBA offense or defense at that speed, at that level, at the standard that's demanded of NBA guys. But he's got feel for the game. He couldn't make an open three. They kept giving them to him. He couldn't make any. I think I saw the Strickland have a funny tweet about that, with the Michael Jordan GIF that's getting popular now. But that doesn't mean anything. At some point, results have to mean something. But if we're coming off an offseason where Fred Katz reports that the same internal shooting metrics that made Emmanuel quickly the kind of guy that Tom Thibodeau was comfortable letting pull from 28 to 29 feet out, those metrics are really looking good in Dadiet's favor. And I believe James Edwards said something similar on KFS that, Pacome's had a big summer. So, and
he said specifically made the decision to trade him a little bit harder, which, to be clear, we can pivot off into that. I understand the financial flexibility aspect, I cannot really comprehend, given who's currently on the roster and what the Knicks needs are now, and even more so in the future, keeping a almost 25-year-old Tyler Kolek over just turned 20 Pacome Dadiet. But I'll let you continue.
So ask yourself, like, over the, oh my gosh, March 2020, I was a senior in high school, blissfully unaware that I was about to step foot in that building for the last time, when Leon Rose was tabbed and hired. In that time, how many signings or trades or extensions or what, like, how many things has he done that were surprising? We probably can't count. There's a good amount. How many things has he done that blatantly don't make sense?
A ton, and then they always seem to end up making. You know, it's funny. I had this conversation with our buddy Jeremy Cohen last year. He was talking about. He was like, "All right, would you trade Mitch?" And I'm like, you know what? I guess if Leon would trade Mitch, I would trade Mitch. Like that is the level of belief at this point. So that's kind of where I fall on all this. But like on a surface level, I get we're getting off topic from the Knicks' first preseason game, so I'll veer us back on. But it is I'm surprised by that reporting and dismayed, but I've learned to hashtag trust the process. So
that's the thing, right? Is it doesn't make sense for them to just trade Dadiet for the fun of it. Like, I think, and I talked about this on the Strickland on a live show with Schwinn recently. Like, I think it's been reported that the Knicks are likely going to move someone. The expectation is they're doing that because they want to fit both Brogdon and Shamet. I think Shamet's play in the playoffs last year, Brogdon's play just today shows you why they're interested in keeping both of those guys over maybe an unproven second-year player who they really only had 4 of those in the first place because of the cap hullabaloo needed to get Bridges and Towns in the same offseason. So I say this all to set up my take that the team is not just looking to shop Pacome Dadiet. Like, I would say that's a misframing, but not an intentional one, nor one that I think is unfair based on a lot of what's been said. But I think some things are getting conflated. I think there's some assumption being made that the Knicks are going to make the deal that nets them the most in return, leading to names like Deuce McBride and Pacome Dadiet being brought up more than a name like Tyler Kolek, because, as you know, someone like James has reported, they're going to get less for Kolek than they would those other 2 guys. That's the thing, is that's okay. Like, I think people are assuming, oh, well, they'll get less for Kolek, so they will just trade someone good so that they get something back. And it's like,
yeah, that's the whole point. The thing you get is Landry Shamet or Malcolm Brogdon on the roster, right? Like that's what you're getting by, or that's what I think you're getting. But to your point, this could all be bigger deal. Maybe.
No, this is Moneyball right now. And part of Moneyball is making the most with what you can. Part of Moneyball is not trading good players to like own the stat sheet nerds and show them that you know better. Like, it doesn't make sense. So if the Knicks trade Dadiet, it's going to be because an offer actually impressed them, not because they were like, oh, fine, I guess you can have our 19-year-old lanky rangy wing for free. Like, fine. That doesn't make sense, you know. But the Knicks first game, that did make sense. Some rust, some speed, some pace, some ball movement, and my second favorite Knicks preseason ejection ever.
That was insane. Yeah, I don't. It was an somewhat incoherent product in the first half, and yet I am incredibly excited about Mike Brown's offense. Let's talk about that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you about our newest friends here at Locked On Knicks, and that is our friends over at Peloton. I have been a Peloton user for about 6 or 7 years now, so you can imagine my excitement when I heard they're a new sponsor of the podcast. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ, it's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I personally love the Peloton IQ system because it offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form in real time, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is also a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, what's up, guys? Gavin, Schall, Kris Pursiainen, 99-84 victory for the New York Knicks in Abu Dhabi. I wanted to talk the Knicks' new offense a little bit because this is a pretty drastic departure from what we generally saw from Tom Thibodeau in terms of movement. Obviously, when the Knicks had Isaiah Hartenstein, like they would occasionally, right, play through the high post, play through him just orchestrating from the top of the key. But this was a little bit different in terms of the usage of the bigs. Like we saw Mitchell Robinson, I think maybe for the first time in his career, hit Jalen Brunson on a backdoor pass and using Mitch and Cat like as hubs at the elbow, just like he did with Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento was a really big feature. We saw even like a Mitch Cat give and go where Cat cut off Mitch, got it back. Ended up getting fouled as he took a runner. I mentioned the one where Brunson went backdoor. There was another Brunson backdoor. Mitch faked it to him and then hit Pacome lifting for a wing three. Really good look, as you noted. Pacome just 1 for 5 from three turnovers. It was certainly not his day in terms of actually converting, but he got a lot of good looks out of the offense. And just generally, there was a lot more freneticism. Felt like there was more of an emphasis on just getting quick hitters, like not even in pure transition situations, but semi-transition situations like the one where Brunson pushed off the left wing, hit Mikal. Mikal quickly like beat a closeout, went in up and under reverse layup. Mikal, we'll talk more about his game, but he was really, really good getting all the way to the rim in this one. We saw Cat positioned all over the floor, like catches on the left wing. A big frustration point and concern point for me with Karl-Anthony Towns last year, Kris, was just his inability to do what Julius Randle was so exceptionally good at, right? Drive, draw two, generate corner threes. I can't remember like more than a handful of times he did that all of last year. Immediately in this game, like drives from the left wing, blows by his guy, draws two at the rim, had Mitch for a dunk, but instead throws like this lefty laser just dancing along the baseline, hits Pacome in the corner again for a three that goes in and out. I'll leave it to you to give your thoughts on the offense. Like there were also a bunch of times where they tried to do stuff like this and it didn't look right and it looked awkward, but I'm liking the potential of what this could be. And it just feels like there are far more avenues for them to find easy buckets for their best players than they generally had under Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to note what I noted, not like patting myself on the back, but reaffirming my take that we saw a different approach today. The chapter is barely even started, but it looks good. We don't know if it's going to be better. We don't know if it is the same as Thibodeau's approach, but because the players learned one way first and then the other way next, now all combined, it's like whatever it is, we're not here to say, wow, the Knicks are a totally brand new, different team. And we've never seen this before. And then, no, they're plugging in modern principles and a lot of what Mike Brown learned in his time with the Golden State Warriors, which is you can have a guy synonymous with a shooting star out there on the court, just flying all around, making shots from anywhere. You can see him from anywhere on the court, and you need to guard him no matter where he is. And you don't need him pounding the rock. You don't need everything going through him. You can actually have other players do things and set that guy up off the ball. Mike Brown talked about this. He was asked about it by Fred Katz at Media Day. When Karl-Anthony Towns was asked in turn about what Brown had said regarding getting Brunson easier, more open shots, Kat brought up Steph Curry. And that's kind of the vision, right? And no one is saying Brunson is Steph Curry. What people are saying is this is a guard with the ability to shoot a lot, to shoot very well, and to handle the ball a lot. The name of the game in the NBA is scheme versatility. I say this all the time. You will hear me maybe once a show on this network. I will say the Celtics didn't win the championship because they played 5 out. They won the championship because they put out 5 shot glasses full of poison and told Dallas to take their pick. They picked death by Kristaps Porzingis above the break threes. That was their choice, right? But it was because Boston could execute that style of basketball to the level that they did that they won that championship. And that is, to me, the great example where, like, Mike Brown told you at media day that you know who's going to have the ball down the stretch for the New York Knicks. You know that guy wearing number 11 is going to be the guy down the stretch. It does not mean that for the 46 minutes it takes, talk about the 46-minute report, right? For those 46 minutes that it takes to get to those final two, you can do Brunson favors. You don't actually have to like raise his rent to motivate him to work harder and pick up more shifts at work. He can just pay the landlord what he owes him. I think this quote from Mike Brown, I kind of am curious for your thoughts. Do you think this is more like, setting the tone, trying not to get too excited? Or do you think that this is just exactly what it sounds like, which is Mike Brown saying our guys did a pretty good job with their pace, but we have to play faster, and we can. We still have to take it 3 to 4 more notches up.
Yeah, I think what that reflects is just the level of thinking that's going on in the court right now, and that it's not seamless yet. And he said as much. He said we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but we're not there yet. And I think you saw that today, and especially with Pacome starting instead of OG, like there was still a little bit of hesitancy. And you saw like Pacome, like first play of the game, like the Knicks had this really good flow, and Pacome caught it, probably had a three, probably had like a layup if he just rapidly attacked the closeout. Instead, he hesitated for a second, waited, ends up dribbling out of bounds, turnover. And that hesitation will inevitably go away with time and with comfort. And you saw it last year in Cleveland when Kenny Atkinson came in, right, where they developed this incredible flow throughout the regular season and played beautiful basketball, and were able to limit everyone's minutes. We're able to get touches across the board, just like they put up a shooting line that was essentially equivalent to an average Kevin Durant season as a team. And then in the playoffs, like a lot of that went away, and it kind of devolved into Donovan Mitchell ISO ball. And maybe some of that was the injuries. Maybe some of that was just like the Pacers, like playing excellent defense schematically. But even, and I said this, I think last time you were on, but I want to reiterate it. Like, even if this goes away in the playoffs and the Knicks end up playing the playoffs very similar to how they did under Tibbs. And I think that was part of Tibbs's premise, being like, this is what it's going to be at the end of the day anyways, or you don't get to run all that pretty crap in the playoffs. One, I don't think that's true. I think there will always be an element of it. You will be able to find easy baskets because you drilled it all year that you wouldn't be able to find otherwise. And then the second thing is, like, there's value in just taking those miles off of Jalen Brunson in the regular season. There's value in finding easy buckets for everyone else in the regular season. And also, like, to your point, leveraging the fact that, like, Jalen, just with his off-ball gravity, even if it's not at Steph Curry levels, which is like its own universe, like, he can create easy things for other people. And it is easier work for Jalen to run laps around screens than it is for him to have the ball and fight through three bodies for layups, which you did at times in this game. But even the Jalen ISO baskets in this game, like, it wasn't a ton of like, all right, work to the mid post, get to my spot and hit a fadeaway jumper. And to Mike Brown's point, there will absolutely be situations where that's essential in the fourth quarter of real games, where Jalen does not just play the first half against the B side of the Sixers team, but it was him just bringing the ball up against an unsettled defense and seeing it and saying, I'm going to put my head down and go really fast to the rim and bully my way through two defenders and get a layup. And some mixed results day one of doing that, but he showed off some good bursts, got to the foul line, got some good looks early. And I just like the idea that even the on-ball stuff for Jalen is a little bit more quick hitting, a little bit less work, a little bit less miles on his body.
Yeah. So there's something you brought up, which was Karl Anthony Towns' cutter.
Mm-hmm.
He had like this, and my joke would always be like, he was the stray cat. When this would happen, like, stop me if you've seen this before on your television screen there, but Jalen Brunson gets a screen or beats someone off the dribble, is driving in, and then approximately 3.5 to 4.5 feet behind him is just like Karl, like, sheepishly crashing the boards behind him. That guy should probably be behind the arc, open for three, right? Right, guys, right? Like, so little things like that. This is Brown. This is the low-hanging fruit, right? This has nothing to do, almost, it feels like, with whether or not they're winning games in January. Like, this is all stuff that's going to settle. That said, something that might actually stick is every once in a while seeing Cat cut for an open dunk. The point is, it's not going to be a play they run 4 times a game. The point is to have defenders not know what Carl is going to be doing, because when you become predictable, you become easier to guard. And knowing that Jalen Brunson is going to drive and Karl Anthony Towns is going to be 3 feet behind him, just, good to have for the glass. How many times does Jalen Brunson miss off 2 feet inside the arc? Like, why are you playing to the 45% and not the 55? So I just think you're seeing things that will settle in. I tweeted earlier that you're going to see the Knicks probably overdo the sharing and caring, overdo the pace, exhaust themselves early. But once they settle in and these Brown principles settle into the team, they're going to be able to make you pick your poison. And part of that is the multiple actions aspect of this. Mike Brown was asked at Media Day, in a very kind way, I may add, basically what he thinks the lowest hanging fruit is. What are some things that he saw on tape from this Knicks team and was like, hey, I'm going to change that as soon as I can. And he said nothing at all, nothing. And then got into his list of like 3 things that he, like, if you made him, if you really twisted his arm.
Into my head. Yeah.
And one of them was how, and he was clearly talking about Jalen, but did Jalen the favor of not mentioning this, and did Tom the favor of not mentioning this, where he's like, you drive, you get past the defender, and you get into the teeth of the defense, and you collapse the defense, and you make the right read, and then you just stop running. Like that, nuh-uh. You're going to go and you're going to dig into the baseline and loop around and then set an off-ball screen for Kale. And then you're going to come off that and you're going to cut, and Kale's going to go to the corner. And like, there's going to be multiple actions per possession. And maybe while Carl and OG are executing the second action of a possession, Jalen's doing, he's got, someone doing bachata on the right wing, and he drains a step back 3 in their face. Cool, right? But that happened because the defense kept feeling like they needed to keep an eye in 2 places at once. There are things that the Knicks were kind of beating themselves with that, to the naked eye, or even to the informed basketball educated eye, were not basketball sins. Rather, it was their predictability. It was, you knew that was going to be the approach. Or once you played the first 3 minutes against the Knicks, you knew how the next 45 were going to go schematically from them. A lot of times, this led to them winning anyway. This led to them making it further than they had in my lifetime thus far, born in 2002. So, like, I'm not trying to say Tom Thibodeau was some hack. He's actually an elite basketball mind, an elite basketball coach, one of my personal favorite coaches, I think, just because of all the shticks, all the obsession with the game that he's become synonymous with. Like, and he's the first professional head coach I ever covered at length in my life. Like, I will always have a soft spot there for that guy and his wrinkles and idiosyncrasies and genuinely hilarious jokes. He treated the press room like he was in his underwear and you were in the locker room before a game, like how real journalists used to do it before COVID kind of enabled NBA teams to be the worst versions of themselves and make you, like, all the media availability happens in one press room and no one else is allowed in the locker room besides like 4 people. Like, I get it. I understand why it happens. There's people who make entire salaries off just staving off media and making sure that their team isn't accidentally misrepresenting themselves or anything. Like, I'm not going to blame any person, but there's also a different feel here. There's just also a different feel here. Mike Brown looking directly into the camera in the back of the room at Media Day and shouting out his folks in Westchester County, like that is different. This doesn't make him a better coach than Tom Thibodeau. It makes him a different one. And that might be all the Knicks need, all in air quotes, because, it's quite a lot to become a real contender. But as they make this leap from, hey, that's kind of cool that they made it to the conference finals, or maybe a little ahead of schedule, to like, if they don't make it to the conference finals, people will lose their job. And they did, and people still lost their job. That was why they moved on from Thibodeau, was they wanted to make sure as they entered this high pressure arena of contention that they were really, really happy with everything they were doing. They didn't want to wear their best pair of shoes, but then have blisters on their feet by noon. So they're like, we got to make sure that this is all right.
Yeah. There, it cannot be overemphasized. Like the fact that, again, moving on from Tom Thibodeau, at least in my mind, was a recognition of like, you have a championship ceiling. Those opportunities in Knicks land come around once every 30 years or so, maybe. You have to take advantage of them when they are there. I will say my final note, the using Cat on the wing and just the way they moved him around, I don't know if it's ultimately going to work, just because I think of like in a world where the Knicks had Isaiah Hartenstein and you were running the offense they were running with Hartenstein and Cat together, I would say that like with those two, that is like a championship starting lineup. With Mitch and Cat, I'm worried you're going to be limited at times by Mitch's lack of on-ball skills. And we saw that at one point where they had a little two-man action and like Cat hit Mitch on like a really slick low pass and Mitch just bobbled it. But the fact that like Mike Brown is at least trying to position Cat in different ways and trying to involve them in actions and trying to use Cat like a wing at times versus what, like on one hand, it was, to your point, it was not Tom Thibodeau's fault in the sense that they didn't prep Cat and Mitch, but who didn't prep Cat and Mitch? They had none of this in the playoffs, and Cat was so clearly an afterthought in the double big lineups in the playoffs last year, and that did not seem like the case today, and that is really encouraging. When we come back, a few more quick hitters, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride, and a whole lot more here on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you just don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It just makes watching football on Sundays a little bit more exciting when you've got something riding on the action. That is particularly true if you live in New York and you are not a Bills fan. If you're a Giants or a Jets fan, sorry, guys, it has been a miserable 12 to 15 years for those two fan bases. Post 2012, if you're a Giants guy, no quarterback, no offensive line. Hey, Jackson Dart is flashing. Oh, no, Malik Neighbors is down and out for the season. It is just rough out there. So why not add a little bit more juice to your Sundays with FanDuel? Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience just that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app and get started today. All right, what's up? Gavin, Schall, Kris Pursiainen wrapping up.
You had to do the Neighbors thing, man. You had to.
Sorry. So I'm a Giants guy. It hurts. It's better to talk and sponsor through the pain. Let's talk.
I'm well adjusted.
Yeah, let's talk. Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride a little bit, because I thought they were, just in terms of like the actual games, like if you remove the context in which guys were used, they felt like the two most active Knicks to me in this one. I thought lots of ups and downs for Mikal. I thought Deuce just flashed a level of ball handling I've never seen from him. That is incredibly enticing and incredibly exciting, as maybe behind the hot hand theory guys, the number one guy in the Deuce McBride fan club in the Knicks space. But what did you make of Mikal Bridges' performance? Because I thought there were some real lapses. The first 2 threes, like we talked about the other day, one of the things I was most looking forward to was seeing how his shot looked after an offseason of presumably just getting it consistent. And his form was not consistent in this game. The results were not consistent in this game in a good way in the second half, where he started draining them. But I thought lots of highs and lows for Mikal.
Nah, I think mostly highs, in the sense of the same way I would view Dadiet getting all those open 3-point looks and not making them as not highs and lows. That's kind of just, that's baseball, Susan. I definitely like noticed Mikal's activity. I think that popped off the screen for most people, particularly with regard to Bridges. Well, he did it pretty directly last season, being, you know, the whistleblower, being the guy to say, hey, maybe not so much of what we're doing, a little less of that. But this offseason, and at the end of the offseason, particularly media day and practices, most particularly the practices following media day, Deuce McBride has kind of been the guy who like totally isn't thinking about his ex, but is posting him and his new girlfriend at all the places him and his ex used to go to. Like he's like, yeah, like what's different about Coach Brown? Oh, nothing's different. I mean, like well, actually, he lets us talk and he listens to what we say. And we were kind of stagnant last year. I don't know if I see that happening this year. And in the playoffs, we're stagnant. It's like, all right. And then how do you really feel? I don't think it's a coincidence that those two M's, Mikal and Miles, were the two guys that popped off the screen the most, other than Ariel Hukporti, to me personally. Like the activity from Bridges and McBride, who all grouped together for this one brief take / observation, which is like, they didn't necessarily get twice as good at basketball overnight, but they may now feel like their performance matters more. And here's what I mean by that. If you work really hard on a paper for a teacher and you feel like you did everything you could and you get a B+, and you go meet with them after class, you figure out what you can do to, get that A next time because you really are a go-getter, and then you make all the changes they want and you feel like you've done everything that you can, and then you get a B+. Are you going to keep trying just as hard to improve your next score? Or do you kind of feel like no matter what, you're just a B+ kind of guy? Yeah. I know I'd get a little dismayed, right? If I felt like I poured myself into improving for someone else's sake, and then they were like, So for someone like Deuce McBride, I think that the kind of quicklification of his role hit him, which is, hey, I'm young and the Knicks are a playoff team and they trust me. And then he's like, I wonder if there's any room for upward mobility here at this new job of mine. And there was not. So I think like you're seeing now these guys play like they're ready to put their money where their mouth was, which is pretty encouraging for Knick fans, I would say, because it shows that any disdain, any contentment, any internal frustration with Tom Thibodeau did not come from a place of, this guy's grumpy and mean and I think he's a bully. It came from, I'm such a freaking competitor. I know I can do more to help this team. I know I'm not being put in the best position to succeed. In the case of McBride, I'm going to shut up and keep my head down and work. In the case of Bridges, I think I could benefit more than just me if I speak up. But it didn't lead to anything different. And I think these guys feel right now like if they play a certain way, good or bad, it could change plans. And that is kind of like a reality that they haven't dealt with in a little bit. We talk about how you'd go into an offseason to figure out what lineup, what rotation the Knicks were going to play for the first 20 games. And then in those 20 games, you'd figure out what rotation and lineups they were going to play for the next 62. I get the sense that Mike Brown might start 3 different lineups in the first 20 games. So that's definitely a stark difference. And for Mikal Bridges, activity was the name of the game. You saw him taking it to the cup, got to the free throw line in a preseason game. And he just also was super active on defense and excited to go turn that into offense. Like that's how he should have been playing last year. It's ultimately on him if he did not end up feeling the motivation or discipline necessary to keep that level of fervor up throughout the season. But the point is, you can't untrade those picks. You got to make the most of what you've got. And they didn't feel that Tom Thibodeau was doing that. Mike Brown, however, is their new try.
Yeah, I have some more thoughts on Bridges. I was a little bit more mixed on his night, and it was mostly because of his usage on defense and his execution on defense. I thought again was a little bit inconsistent, but man, I was so impressed with Deuce. Like you, I'm a Hucky Bear stan. Ariel Hukporti, I thought was incredible in this one. And then they played, I didn't actually count. I'm going to do it live right now. 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. They played 19 guys in this game, which is not legal in a normal NBA game. You just can't carry that many on the active roster.
He said he was going to do it.
Yeah.
he said he was going to do it.
He's crazy, man. I think I mentioned on the last pod, that's what he did game 1 in Sacramento. we're going to spin this off into a little bonus episode, and we're going to talk about all that next time on Locked On Knicks. But until then, he's Kris Pursiainen. Check out all of his work. You can follow him on Twitter at Kris Pursiainen. Again, that is Pursiainen. I am reading it off the screen. I do not have it memorized. Sorry, Kris. To check out all of his work over at Clutch Points. Whole lot of writing, whole lot more coverage, tweets, bunch of thoughts. Check him out. Check him out on Google too to find his writing. And obviously, you can find everything here over at Locked On Knicks. We'll talk to you soon.